Amara's fingers moved methodically across the marble countertop, polishing until she could see her reflection, a ghost of a woman who'd learned to take up no space at all. The kitchen of the Volkov estate gleamed under her careful attention, every surface pristine, every detail perfect. Invisible work by an invisible woman. That was exactly how she needed it. The September morning sun filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden light across the sprawling kitchen that was larger than any apartment she'd lived in over the past 4 years. Outside, the manicured grounds of the estate stretched for acres, a fortress of wealth and power in the heart of Boston's most exclusive neighborhood. Amara had been cleaning this kitchen for 6 months now. 6 months of arriving before dawn, working in silence, and leaving before the family gathered for dinner. 6 months of being so unremarkable that even the other staff barely remembered her name. It was perfect. It was safe. It was slowly killing her. "Is the breakfast room prepared?" Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, appeared in the doorway, her sharp eyes sweeping the kitchen with the precision of a general inspecting troops. "Yes, ma'am. Fresh flowers, linens pressed, silver polished." "Good. Mrs. Volkov is entertaining this morning. Stay out of sight once you've finished here." "Of course." Amara kept her eyes down, her voice soft and deferential. The perfect servant. Mrs. Chen nodded and disappeared, leaving Amara alone with the quiet hum of expensive appliances and the weight of everything she was pretending not to be. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. 4 years ago, Amara had been Dr. Amara Baptiste, the youngest person ever appointed to the United Nations International Language Services Division. She'd interpreted for presidents and prime ministers, facilitated peace negotiations, traveled the world as one of the most sought-after simultaneous interpreters in existence. She'd spoken 9 languages fluently: English, French, Italian, Russian, Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese, German, and Swahili, and had been working on her 10th when everything fell apart. The scandal had been swift and brutal, a mistranslation during crucial Middle Eastern peace talks, except it hadn't been her mistranslation. Someone had altered the official transcripts, changed her words, made it look like she'd deliberately sabotaged the negotiations for political gain. The investigation had been a joke. She'd been the convenient scapegoat, a young black woman with no powerful family to protect her, no legacy name to shield her. The UN had terminated her contract. The media had destroyed her reputation. Death threats had flooded her inbox from extremists on all sides. So Amara Baptiste had disappeared. She'd changed her name, buried her credentials, and taken the only jobs where no one would look twice at a black woman: cleaning, serving, existing in the margins of other people's lives. The sound of voices drifted from the breakfast room, feminine laughter, the clink of china, the practiced social dance of women who'd been born into wealth and power. Amara recognized Mrs. Volkov's voice immediately. Katerina Volkov, matriarch of the Volkov family, was a woman who wielded her social position like a weapon. In her late 50s, still beautiful in that preserved way that came from expensive treatments and even more expensive genetics, she ruled Boston's elite social circles with an iron fist wrapped in designer silk. "Simply unacceptable," Mrs. Volkov was saying, her accent a refined blend of Russian and New England aristocracy. "Dmitri needs to marry someone appropriate. Someone from our world who understands our responsibilities." Amara's hand stilled on the countertop. Dmitri Volkov, the son, the heir, the man who owned this estate and everything in it, including, in a way, Amara herself. She'd seen him exactly 4 times in 6 months. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes the color of winter storms and a presence that made even hardened criminals step back. He moved through the world with the casual confidence of someone who'd never had to question his place in it. He was also, if the whispers among the staff were true, trying to legitimize the family business, to pull the Volkov empire away from the organized crime that had built it and toward legal enterprises that wouldn't land them all in prison. His mother, apparently, had other priorities. The Petrov girl would be perfect, another voice chimed in. Old family, excellent connections, and she's been educated in Switzerland. Exactly, Mrs. Volkov said with satisfaction. Someone who can stand beside him at galas and charity events. Someone who reflects well on the family name. Amara told herself to leave, to slip out the service entrance and avoid whatever social theater was about to unfold. But her body had other ideas, rooted to the spot by some masochistic need to hear how people like Mrs. Volkov really viewed people like her. Mrs. Volkov, your coffee. A nervous young maid, Elena, barely 18, hurried past Amara toward the breakfast room, carrying a silver tray that trembled slightly in her hands. Amara watched her go, a bad feeling settling in her stomach. 3 seconds later, she heard the crash. You stupid girl! Mrs. Volkov's voice cut through the morning like a whip. This is a $12,000 dress? Amara's feet were moving before her brain caught up. She shouldn't interfere, shouldn't draw attention, shouldn't risk being noticed. But Elena was crying, and Mrs. Volkov's voice had taken on that particular tone of cruelty that made Amara's hands clench into fists. She appeared in the breakfast room doorway just as Mrs. Volkov raised her hand. Stop! The word came out sharp and commanding, the voice of someone who'd once silenced rooms full of diplomats, not the meek servant Amara had pretended to be for 6 months. Every head in the room turned toward her. Mrs. Volkov stood beside the table, coffee staining the front of her cream-colored Chanel suit, her hand frozen mid-air above Elena's cowering form. 3 other society women sat around the table, their expressions ranging from shock to scandalized delight at the unexpected drama. And in the doorway behind his mother, having apparently just arrived, stood Dmitry Volkov himself. His storm-gray eyes locked onto Amara with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Who? Mrs. Volkov said slowly, her hand lowering as she turned to face Amara fully. Do you think you are? Amara's survival instinct screamed at her to apologize, to back away, to disappear back into invisibility. But Elena was 19, far from home, and terrified. And Amara had spent 4 years being invisible while watching injustice unfold around her. She was so tired of being invisible. I'm the one who's going to help clean this up, Amara said, keeping her voice level as she moved into the room. She knelt beside Elena, helping the girl to her feet. Are you hurt? Elena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It's all right, Amara murmured. Go to the kitchen. I'll handle this. You'll handle this? Mrs. Volkov's laugh was sharp and cutting. You're a maid. You don't handle anything. You clean up messes, and right now, you're creating one. Amara straightened, meeting the older woman's gaze directly. Another mistake. Another violation of the invisible servant protocol she'd maintained for months. With respect, Mrs. Volkov, she's a child who made an accident. There's no reason to discipline my staff? Mrs. Volkov's eyes narrowed. You forget yourself. This is my home. These are my employees. And you... She looked Amara up and down with undisguised contempt. Are so far beneath my notice that the fact you're speaking to me at all is grounds for immediate termination. One of the other women at the table giggled nervously. Another whispered something behind her hand. Amara felt the familiar burn of humiliation, the same feeling she'd experienced during those UN hearings when senators had talked about her like she wasn't even in the room. When men in expensive suits had decided her career, her reputation, her entire life was worth sacrificing for political convenience. Mother. Dimitri's voice cut through the tension like a knife through silk. He stepped into the room, and suddenly the space felt smaller, charged with a different kind of energy. That's enough. Dimitri, darling, I was just terrorizing the staff? He moved to stand beside Amara, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something expensive and subtly spiced. Over an accident? She spoke to me with disrespect. She defended a teenager from being struck. Dimitri's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. Which, last I checked, is assault. Would you like me to call the police? Or shall we just call this an overreaction to ruined clothing? Mrs. Volkov's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You don't understand? I understand perfectly. Dimitri turned to Amara, and for the first time she saw his face up close. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, and those eyes. Intelligent, calculating, missing nothing. What's your name? Amara, sir. Amara. He said it carefully, like he was tasting the syllables. How long have you worked here? 6 months, sir. And in 6 months, has anyone ever complained about your work? No, sir. Have you ever been insubordinate before this moment? Amara hesitated. No, sir. Then it seems to me, Dimitri said, turning back to his mother, that this was a woman with an excellent work record who made the mistake of having a conscience, hardly a firing offense. Mrs. Volkov's eyes glittered with rage, but she smiled, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes, that spoke of battles to be fought later, in private. Of course, darling, you're absolutely right. I simply overreacted. She turned to Amara, and her expression made it clear that this wasn't over. You may go. Clean yourself up. You have coffee on your uniform. Amara looked down. Sure enough, drops of coffee had splattered across her simple black dress when she'd knelt to help Elena. Thank you, Mrs. Volkov, Amara said quietly. As she turned to leave, she felt rather than saw Dimitri's eyes following her. There was a weight to his gaze, an assessment happening that made her nervous in ways that had nothing to do with employment. Amara. She stopped, turned back. Dimitri stood with his hands in the pockets of his tailored suit, looking every inch the dangerous businessman he was rumored to be. Come to my office when you've changed. I'd like to speak with you. Her stomach dropped. Of course, sir. As she walked back to the servants' quarters, her heart hammering against her ribs, Amara realized she'd just made a catastrophic mistake. She'd been noticed. 30 minutes later, Amara stood outside Dmitri Volkov's office, her hand raised to knock, her pulse racing. She'd changed into a fresh uniform, braided her natural curls back into the severe bun she wore for work, tried to rebuild the armor of invisibility she'd worn for 4 years. But she could still feel the weight of his gaze on her, could still hear the way he'd said her name. She knocked. Enter. The office was exactly what she'd expected. Dark wood, expensive furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. What she hadn't expected was the wall of books, real books, in multiple languages. Or the art on the walls, pieces that looked original and carefully chosen rather than purchased by an interior designer to fill space. Dimitri sat behind a massive mahogany desk, but when she entered, he stood, an unexpected courtesy that made her pause. Close the door. She obeyed, her mouth dry. Sit. He gestured to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. I'd prefer to stand, sir. I'm sure you would. His expression was unreadable. Sit anyway. Amara sat, back straight, hands folded in her lap, every inch the perfect servant despite the fact that her insides were churning with anxiety. Dimitri didn't return to his chair. Instead, he moved around the desk, leaning against it directly in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You've been here 6 months, he said. Yes, sir. In that time, you've been punctual, efficient, and completely unremarkable. According to Mrs. Chen, you're the best maid she's hired in years because you never cause problems, never gossip, and never draw attention to yourself. Amara said nothing. Until this morning. Dmitri tilted his head, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. This morning, you spoke to my mother like an equal. You used a tone of command that had everyone in that room stopping to listen. And when she tried to intimidate you, you held your ground. I apologize for the disrespect. Don't. The word was sharp. Don't apologize for having a spine. I'm not interested in your apology. I'm interested in the truth. I don't understand. Who are you really, Amara? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. I'm a maid, Mr. Volkov. No. He leaned forward slightly, and she caught that scent again. Cedar and something darker. Something that made her pulse quicken. Maids don't speak with the vocabulary you used. They don't carry themselves the way you do. They don't make eye contact like they're used to being listened to rather than dismissed. Amara's heart hammered. I don't know what you mean. I had my security team pull your employment file while you were changing. Dmitri straightened, moving back around the desk to pick up a thin folder. Amara Chen. That's the name you gave us. Born in San Francisco. 32 years old. Previous employment at various hotels and cleaning services. High school education. No college. No family to speak of. He set the folder down and looked at her directly. It's a good cover identity. Clean background check. Legitimate work history. Nothing that raises red flags. He paused. Except for one small detail. Amara's mouth went dry. Your references all check out. Your previous employers all say the same thing. Excellent worker, quiet, reliable. But none of them remember you particularly well. It's like you worked there just long enough to establish a paper trail and then disappeared into the next job. He moved closer again, and this time Amara forced herself not to shrink back. Someone taught you how to become invisible, Dmitri said quietly. Someone taught you how to build a false identity good enough to pass casual scrutiny, but not deep investigation. And someone with that kind of training, that kind of skill at disappearing. His eyes narrowed. They're not running from poverty or lack of education. They're running from something much more dangerous. Amara met his gaze, her mind racing through options. Deny everything? Stick to her story? Run? I need this job, she said finally. Whatever you think I am, whatever you think I'm hiding, it has nothing to do with you or your family. I just need to work, to survive, to be left alone. See? That's what I thought at first. Dmitri returned to his chair, leaning back with the casual confidence of a predator who knew his prey couldn't escape. But then I remembered something. During that little confrontation with my mother, when you first spoke, you didn't just command the room, you assessed it. I saw your eyes moving, taking in positions, exits, threat levels. He smiled, and it was not a comforting expression. That's not a maid's reflex, Amara, that's training. Military, intelligence, or security. So I'll ask you again, and this time I want the truth. He leaned forward. Who are you really? And what are you running from? The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Amara had two choices. She could lie, maintain her cover, and hope he'd let it go. But looking into those storm-gray eyes, seeing the intelligence behind them, she knew he wouldn't. Dmitri Volkov hadn't built an empire by accepting convenient lies. Or she could tell him the truth. Risk everything. Step out of the shadows she'd hidden in for 4 years. Before she could decide, the office door burst open. Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway, her normally composed expression frantic. Mr. Volkov, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. Dmitri's jaw tightened. What kind of situation? Your business partners from Moscow just arrived, 3 hours early. They brought a translator, but she just collapsed in the foyer. Food poisoning, apparently. The meeting is in 45 minutes. and without a Russian interpreter. Cancel it. Dmitri stood. Reschedule for when we can arrange proper translation. Sir, with respect, these are not men who appreciate being rescheduled. The Kozlov brothers flew in specifically for this meeting. If you cancel, they'll see it as an insult. And the last person who insulted the Kozlovs ended up in the harbor. Dmitri finished grimly. Yes, I'm aware. I speak Russian. The words were out of Amara's mouth before she could stop them. Both Dmitri and Mrs. Chen turned to stare at her. What did you say? Dmitri asked slowly. Amara stood, her hands trembling but her voice steady. I speak Russian. Fluently. I can interpret for your meeting. Mrs. Chen looked bewildered. How does a maid? How fluently? Dmitri interrupted, his eyes locked on Amara's face. Я говорю по-русски так же свободно, как и по-английски, Amara said smoothly. I speak Russian as fluently as English, business Russian, legal Russian, colloquial Russian. I can handle your meeting. The silence that followed felt eternal. Then Dmitri moved around, his desk with the fluid grace of a shark circling prey. He stopped directly in front of her, so close she could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes. What else do you speak? This was it. The moment of no return. Once she revealed herself, there would be no going back to invisibility. No safety in being overlooked. But the Kozlov brothers were dangerous men. She'd heard enough kitchen gossip to know that. And if Dmitri canceled this meeting, if he insulted them because he had no translator, people would die. Maybe Dmitri himself. Amara took a breath and stepped off the cliff. French, Italian, Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese, German, and Swahili. She met his eyes. 9 languages total, including English and Russian, all fluent, all simultaneous interpretation capable. Dmitri went very still. Then he turned to Mrs. Chen. Leave us. Sir. Now. Mrs. Chen fled, closing the door behind her. Dmitri circled Amara slowly like he was seeing her for the first time. When he completed the circuit, he stopped directly in front of her, invading her space in a way that should have felt threatening, but instead felt electrifying. 9 languages, he said softly, simultaneous interpretation capability, training that lets you assess a room like a professional, and you've been cleaning my house for 6 months. He laughed, and the sound was equal parts amazement and anger. You're not running from poverty. You're not some uneducated woman trying to survive. His hand came up, not touching her but close enough that she could feel the heat of his palm. You're someone highly trained, highly educated, and so desperate to stay hidden that you've buried yourself in my household staff. His eyes searched hers, looking for answers she wasn't ready to give. I'm going to find out your secrets, Amara. Every single one of them. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. But right now, I need you. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to help me with this meeting. You're going to prove you can do what you say. And when it's over, you're going to tell me everything. Why you're here, what you're hiding, and who I need to destroy to keep you safe. You don't even know me. I know enough. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, a touch so gentle it made her breath catch. I know you protected someone weaker than yourself this morning, even though it put you at risk. I know you just volunteered to help me, even though it means exposing yourself. And I know, his eyes darkened, that whatever made you hide like this, whoever hurt you badly enough to make you disappear, they're going to pay for it. That's not your responsibility. You just became my responsibility the moment you offered to save my life. His hand dropped and he stepped back, suddenly all business. The meeting is in 40 minutes. Can you be ready? Amara's heart raced. This was insane. Reckless. Everything she'd avoided for 4 years. But she looked at Dmitri Volkov. This dangerous, complicated man who just promised to protect her without knowing anything about her, and found herself nodding. I can be ready. Good. He moved to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. Antonio, bring Amara something appropriate to wear. Business professional. And bring the Kozlov file to my office immediately. He looked at Amara, and something in his expression made her pulse skip. Welcome to my world, Amara. Let's hope you survive it. 20 minutes later, Amara stood in front of a full-length mirror in a private dressing room adjacent to Dimitri's office, barely recognizing herself. The navy blue suit fit perfectly, tailored, expensive, professional. Someone had brought her low heels, simple jewelry, even makeup. Her natural curls had been released from their severe bun and now framed her face in soft professional waves. She looked like Dr. Amara Baptiste again. The woman she'd been before the world had decided she was disposable. They're ready for you, Antonio said from the doorway. Dimitri's second-in-command was a lean man in his 40s with sharp eyes and the kind of stillness that came from violence mastered, not avoided. He'd assessed her 3 times since bringing her the clothes, clearly trying to figure out what game she was playing. Amara took a breath and followed him into Dimitri's office. Dimitri stood by the windows, speaking quietly on his phone. When he turned and saw her, his words cut off mid-sentence. For a long moment, he just stared, his expression unreadable. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, not breaking eye contact with Amara. He crossed the room slowly, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Better, he said quietly. Much better. This is who you really are. This is who I used to be, Amara corrected softly. No. Dimitri's hand came up, adjusting the collar of her suit jacket in a gesture that felt far too intimate for an employer. This is who you've always been. You just forgot for a while. Before she could respond, he moved to his desk and picked up a thick folder. The Kozlov brothers, Viktor and Alexei. They run shipping operations out of Moscow, legitimate and otherwise. I'm negotiating for access to their Eastern European routes to expand my transportation business. He handed her the folder. The legitimate transportation business. You're trying to go legal, Amara said, scanning the documents. Her mind, dormant for so long, roared back to life as she absorbed the information. My father built this empire on blood and intimidation. I'm trying to build something that won't land me in prison or a grave. Dimitri's jaw tightened. My mother thinks I'm betraying his legacy. I think I'm evolving it. Amara looked up from the folder. The Kozlovs don't care about legitimacy. They want access to your Boston port facilities for smuggling. That's what this negotiation is really about. Dimitri's eyebrows rose. You got all that from 30 seconds of reading? The language in Section 3 gives them unrestricted access to Warehouse 7. That's the facility furthest from customs inspection, with the most coastline access. She met his eyes. They're not stupid, and neither are you. You're going to give them what they want while building in safeguards that protect you if they get caught. A slow smile spread across Dimitri's face. It transformed him from intimidating to devastating. You're magnificent, he said softly. Absolutely magnificent. Where the hell have you been hiding for 6 months? Trying to survive, Amara said quietly. His expression sobered. Well, you're done just surviving. After this meeting, we're going to talk about what comes next. A knock at the door interrupted them. Antonio entered, his face tense. They're here, boss, and they brought more than just themselves. How many? Dimitri asked sharply. 6 men total. The brothers, their head of security, and 3 others who look military. Dimitri cursed under his breath in Russian. Amara understood every word. They're testing you, she said. Showing force to see if you'll back down or overreact. Either response makes you look weak. So what do I do? It was asked like he was genuinely curious about her opinion, not like he was testing her. Match them exactly. 6 of yours in the room, confident but not aggressive. And make sure I'm positioned as your equal at the table, not your servant. If they see me as beneath you, they won't take anything I translate seriously." Dmitri studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Antonio. "You heard her? 6 of ours. Best men. And Antonio?" He glanced back at Amara. "She sits beside me at the table. Make sure there's a place setting for her. Water, notepad, everything I have. She represents me in this meeting. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one." Antonio's eyes widened slightly, but he nodded and left. "You didn't have to do that," Amara said softly. "Yes, I did." Dmitri moved closer, and she caught that cedar scent again. "Those men are going to try to intimidate you, insult you, test whether you're competent or just decoration. I need them to know from the start that you have my complete trust and authority." "You don't even know if I'm competent yet." "I know." His hand brushed her arm, a brief touch that sent electricity through her. "I've spent my entire life reading people, Amara. It's how I've stayed alive. And I'm reading you loud and clear." "What am I saying?" She meant it as a challenge. "That you're terrified of being seen again. That you've been hurt so badly you chose invisibility over everything you were trained to be. But also," his voice softened, "that you're brave enough to step back into the light when it matters. That you can't watch people suffer when you have the power to help. And that, underneath all that fear, you're remembering what it feels like to be brilliant, capable, and respected." Tears burned unexpectedly in Amara's eyes. In 4 years, no one had looked at her closely enough to see any of that. "We should go," she managed. "They'll be waiting." "One more thing." Dmitri reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small earpiece. "Wear this. It's connected to Antonio and my security team. If anything feels wrong, if you feel unsafe for even a second, you say one word, winter, and they'll get you out of there immediately." "You think it might get dangerous?" "I think I'm bringing a woman I just met into a room with Russian mobsters who have a reputation for brutality." His expression was hard. "I'm not taking chances with your safety." He handed her the earpiece, and when she put it in, his fingers lingered against her jaw for just a moment longer than necessary. "Stay close to me," he said quietly. "And Amara? Thank you for this, for trusting me when you clearly don't trust easily." "I haven't decided if I trust you yet," Amara admitted. Dimitri's smile was sharp and genuine. "Smart woman. Let's go." The conference room was on the first floor, a space designed for exactly this kind of high-stakes negotiation. Dark wood table, leather chairs, windows that looked out on the gardens but were, Amara noticed, bulletproof. The Kozlov brothers were already seated. Victor, the elder at 45, had the weathered face of a man who'd seen violence up close. Alexei, younger by 3 years, was sleeker, more polished, but his eyes held the same cold calculation. Their 6 men stood along the walls, large, armed, watching. Dimitri's 6 men mirrored them on the opposite wall. Antonio stood directly behind where Dmitri would sit, his hand resting casually on his belt near where Amara was certain he kept a weapon. "Dmitri!" Victor stood, spreading his arms in a show of warmth that didn't reach his eyes. He spoke in Russian. "So good to finally meet in person. We've heard so much about the young Volkov trying to legitimize the family business." "Victor, Alexei," Dmitri responded in perfect Russian as he moved to the table. "Thank you for making the journey. I apologize for the confusion with the translator." "No confusion." Victor's eyes slid to Amara. "I see you found a replacement, though she seems very young. Are you sure she can handle the complexity of our discussion?" The condescension in his tone was deliberate. A test. Amara kept her expression neutral, professional. She'd dealt with men like Victor before, men who assumed that being young, black, and female meant she was either stupid or decoration. "I assure you," Dimitri said smoothly, guiding Amara to the chair beside his, "Ms. Baptiste is more than capable. She speaks 9 languages fluently and has extensive experience with international negotiations." Baptiste. He'd used her real surname. How had he— Of course, he'd had her investigated. Probably had his security team digging into her background the moment she'd revealed her language skills, which meant he might already know about the UN scandal, about her fall from grace. Her stomach twisted, but she kept her face calm as she sat. Victor smiled, but it was the smile of a shark. 9 languages. Impressive. He switched to rapid-fire Russian, the kind of colloquial street slang that most formal translators would struggle with. "Can she understand this? I'm telling my brother that she has nice legs but probably fucks like a dead fish. What do you think, Alexei?" Alexei laughed, responding in equally crude Russian about what he'd like to do to her. Amara didn't flinch, didn't react. She'd heard worse from diplomats who thought she didn't understand their private conversations. Dimitri's hand, resting on the table, curled into a fist. He opened his mouth to respond, but Amara beat him to it. "Gentlemen," she said in flawless Russian, her tone professionally pleasant. "While I appreciate your creative attempts to test my language skills, I should inform you that I understand every word you just said, including Victor's comment about my legs. Thank you, I suppose, and Alexei's rather anatomically improbable suggestions about what he'd like to do after this meeting." Both brothers went still, their expressions shifting from smug superiority to shock. Amara smiled, sweet as poison. "Now, would you like to continue with these fascinating insights into your sexual fantasies, or shall we discuss the actual business that brought you here? I'm fluent in both crude propositions and complex contract negotiations, but only one of those is going to make you money." The room was silent. Victor's face had gone dark red. Alexei looked like he'd been slapped. Then, impossibly, Victor began to laugh. Real laughter, not the calculated show from before. "Bоже moi," he said, slapping the table. "She has steel. Dimitri, where did you find this woman? I like her." "So do I," Dimitri said quietly, and something in his voice made Amara's pulse quicken. "Which is why the next man who speaks about her with anything less than complete respect will be removed from this meeting. Permanently." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Dimitri's voice had remained calm, almost conversational, but the threat was unmistakable. Victor's laughter died. He studied Dimitri with new respect. "Understood. My apologies, Ms. Baptiste. That was crude and unnecessary." "Apology accepted," Amara said professionally. "Shall we begin?" For the next 3 hours, Amara translated. But she didn't just translate. She facilitated, clarified, and occasionally interjected when she sensed miscommunication or deliberate obfuscation. The Kozlovs wanted access to Dimitri's port facilities for general shipping. Dimitri wanted to expand his reach into Eastern European markets through their established networks. Both sides were dancing around the real issue. The Kozlovs would use some of those shipments for smuggling, and Dimitri needed plausible deniability. Section 7, Amara said during a heated debate about liability clauses. "The language is vague here. Victor, you're assuming reasonable oversight means Dimitri won't inspect your cargo. Dimitri, you're assuming it means you can refuse any shipment that seems suspicious. Those are contradictory interpretations that will cause problems later." Victor frowned. "What do you suggest?" "Clearer language. Reasonable oversight becomes standard customs procedures as required by law. That protects Dimitri legally. He's following the law. And Victor, it gives you exactly what you want because standard customs procedures at Warehouse 7 are—" She glanced at the facility documents. Minimal at best. Conducted once weekly unless triggered by specific flags. Both men stared at her. She's telling us how to smuggle through legal channels, Alexei said slowly, while protecting everyone legally. I'm telling you how to write a contract that doesn't send everyone to prison, Amara corrected. What you do with that information is your business. Dmitri was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Pride? Surprise? Something darker? And more possessive? By the time the meeting ended, they had the framework of a deal that satisfied both parties. The Kozlovs would get their shipping access. Dmitri would expand into Eastern Europe. And the contract language was clean enough that if anything went wrong, both sides had legal protection. Ms. Baptiste, Victor said as they prepared to leave, if you ever tire of working for Dmitri, I would pay you very well to work for me. She's not available, Dmitri said before Amara could respond. His hand settled on the small of her back, warm and possessive. Ever. Victor grinned. I thought so. Dmitri, you always did have excellent taste. Don't let this one get away. After the Kozlovs left, Dmitri dismissed everyone except Antonio. Get me everything, he said quietly. Dr. Amara Baptiste, UN translator. Whatever scandal destroyed her career, every detail. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Already in progress, boss, Antonio said. Should have a full report within the hour. Good. Dmitri turned to Amara. You must be exhausted. 3 hours of simultaneous interpretation is brutal. Amara was exhausted. Her head throbbed, her throat was raw, and the adrenaline that had kept her sharp during the meeting was crashing hard. I'm fine, she said. You're swaying on your feet. Dimitri's hand was back on her elbow, steadying her. When did you last eat? This morning. Breakfast before my shift. That was 9 hours ago. He looked at Antonio. Have the kitchen prepare something. Bring it to the East Wing study, and have Mrs. Chen prepare the blue suite. The blue suite? Antonio's eyebrows rose. Boss, that's where Amara will be staying from now on. Dimitri's tone brooked no argument. She's no longer a maid. She's my personal translator and advisor. She'll have appropriate accommodations. Dimitri, that's not necessary. Amara started. Yes, it is. He guided her out of the conference room and down a hallway she'd cleaned 100 times but never been invited to walk through as anything but invisible help. You just saved a multi-million-dollar deal and probably prevented a war with the Kozlovs. You think I'm going to send you back to the servants' quarters? I don't need luxury. Maybe not, but you deserve respect. He stopped, turning to face her. And part of that respect is acknowledging what you did today. You were extraordinary, Amara. Brilliant, professional, and you handled Victor's disgusting comments with more grace than most people could manage. His hand came up, tucking a curl behind her ear in a gesture so gentle it made her breath catch. I'm going to take care of you now, he said softly. You've been taking care of yourself, hiding, surviving, for so long. Let me help. Why? The question came out raw, vulnerable. You don't know me, don't know what I've done, what I'm running from. Then tell me. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Trust me with your secrets, Amara. I promise you, whatever they are, I've seen worse, done worse. Amara wanted to. God, she wanted to trust someone, to stop carrying everything alone. But the last time she'd trusted people, her bosses, her colleagues, the system, they'd destroyed her. I need time, she whispered. Then take it. Dmitri stepped back, giving her space even though she could see the effort it cost him. But you're staying in the blue suite. You're eating proper meals. And tomorrow, we're going to discuss your new position officially. What about your mother? Amara couldn't help asking. She's going to be furious. Dimitri's expression hardened. My mother doesn't run this estate or this business, I do. She'll adjust. But as they continued down the hallway, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that Katerina Volkov wouldn't adjust at all. She'd retaliate, and when she did, Amara's carefully hidden past might be the weapon she used. The blue suite was stunning. Bedroom, sitting room, private bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. Windows overlooking the gardens. Furniture that belonged in a 5-star hotel. Amara stood in the center of the bedroom, still wearing the navy suit, feeling like an imposter. A knock at the door made her turn. A young woman entered carrying a tray of food: pasta, salad, bread, and what looked like homemade tiramisu. "Mr. Volkov said you should eat everything," the woman said, setting the tray on the sitting room table. "He said you worked very hard today and need your strength." After the woman left, Amara sank onto the sofa and stared at the food. When was the last time someone had cared if she ate? If she was tired? If she needed anything at all? She was 3 bites into the pasta when her door opened without knocking. Katerina Volkov swept in like a storm, her coffee-stained dress replaced by an elegant black ensemble. Her eyes were cold with fury. "So," she said in clipped tones, "the maid has been promoted." Amara stood slowly, setting down her fork. "Mrs. Volkov, can I help you?" "Help me?" Katerina laughed, sharp and cutting. "Oh, I think you've helped yourself quite enough. What did you do? Seduce my son? Promise him things a woman like you has no business promising?" "I interpreted a business meeting," Amara said evenly. "That's all. Don't play naive with me." Katerina moved closer, and Amara recognized the look in her eyes. She'd seen it before in people who viewed her as a threat to be eliminated. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I know your type. You think you can use your exotic looks and your languages to trap a wealthy man." "My type?" Amara's voice remained calm despite the anger building in her chest. "A black woman, with no family, no connections, no breeding." Katerina's smile was vicious. "You're nobody, dear. A servant playing dress-up. And the moment Dmitri gets bored, and he will get bored, you'll be right back where you belong. Invisible." The words hit their mark. Every insecurity Amara had been nursing for 4 years, every moment she'd felt like she didn't belong, didn't deserve to be seen, Katerina had found them and twisted the knife. "Mrs. Volkov," Amara said quietly, "I think you should leave." "Oh, I'll leave. But let me give you some advice, woman to woman." Katerina's voice dropped to a poisonous whisper. "Whatever secrets you're hiding, and we both know you're hiding something, I'm going to find them. I'm going to expose them. And when I do, Dmitri will see you for what you really are. A fraud. A nobody. A mistake he never should have made." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Enjoy the suite while it lasts, dear. You won't be here long?" The door closed with a soft click that felt more threatening than a slam. Amara sank back onto the sofa, her appetite gone, her hands shaking. Katerina Volkov was going to investigate her. And when she found the UN scandal, when she discovered how Dr. Amara Baptiste had been accused of sabotaging peace talks, had been fired in disgrace and forced to disappear, Dmitri would see her differently. Everyone always did. A knock at the door made her tense. "Come in." Dmitri entered, and the moment he saw her face, his expression darkened. "What happened?" "Your mother paid me a visit." "What did she say?" His voice had gone dangerously quiet. Amara shook her head. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." Dmitri crossed the room and knelt in front of her, his hands gentle on her knees. "Tell me what she said." So Amara did. She repeated Katerina's words, watched his expression grow colder with each sentence. "She threatened to expose your secrets," he said when she finished. "Yes? So expose them yourself." His hands tightened on her knees. "Tell me, Amara. Tell me what you're running from, and I swear to you, I will protect you from it." Amara looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw something that terrified her more than any threat from Katerina Volkov. She saw genuine care, real concern, the promise of protection from a man dangerous enough to deliver on it. And for the first time in 4 years, she wanted to believe someone could keep that promise. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll tell you everything." Dmitri didn't move from where he knelt in front of her. His hands remained steady on her knees, grounding her, giving her an anchor while her world threatened to tilt again. "Start wherever you need to," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." Amara took a shaky breath. 4 years of silence, of carrying this alone, pressed against her chest like a physical weight. "My real name is Dr. Amara Elizabeth Baptiste," she began. "4 years ago, I was the youngest simultaneous interpreter ever appointed to the UN's International Language Services Division." She watched his face for judgment, for the shift in expression that always came when people realized who she really was. But Dimitri's expression remained steady, attentive. "I was assigned to Middle Eastern peace negotiations, high-level talks between 3 countries that had been at war for decades. The kind of negotiations that make or break careers, that save or cost thousands of lives." Her voice cracked. "I was 28 years old and terrified of making a mistake." "But you didn't make a mistake," Dmitri said. It wasn't a question. "No, I was perfect. Every word, every nuance, every cultural implication, I caught it all. The talks were going well, better than anyone expected." Amara's hands clenched in her lap. And then, 3 weeks in, everything exploded. She forced herself to meet his eyes. "Someone altered the official transcripts, changed my translations to make it look like I deliberately mistranslated key phrases, phrases that completely changed the meaning of what was being offered. One side thought they were being promised territorial concessions. The other side thought they were only being offered symbolic gestures. The difference was enough to derail everything." "Jesus," Dmitri breathed. The talks collapsed. People died in the violence that followed. And the investigation pointed directly at me. Amara's voice shook with remembered rage and helplessness. "They said I'd been bribed, that I deliberately sabotaged the negotiations for political gain, that I was a radical sympathizer working to undermine peace." "But you weren't." "Of course I wasn't." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I believed in that work. I believed that language could build bridges, that understanding could prevent war. I was so fucking naive." Dimitri's hands moved from her knees to her hands, his fingers lacing through hers. "What happened?" he asked. "They fired me. Publicly. The UN released a statement saying they'd terminated my contract due to professional misconduct and breach of neutrality. The media ran with it. Within 24 hours, I went from rising star to international villain." Amara could still remember those headlines, the photos they'd used. Always the worst angles, always chosen to make her look angry or guilty. My face was everywhere. Conservative outlets called me a terrorist sympathizer. Liberal outlets called me incompetent. Extremists from all sides sent death threats. I couldn't go outside without being recognized. Couldn't check my email without seeing messages telling me I should die. Who did it? Dimitri's voice was cold, lethal. Who actually altered the transcripts? I don't know. And that was the worst part. The investigation was a joke. They wanted a scapegoat, and I was convenient. Young, black, no powerful family to protect me, no political connections to make me untouchable. They needed someone to blame, and I was perfect for it. So you disappeared. I disappeared, Amara confirmed. I changed my name, buried my credentials, took jobs where no one would look twice at a black woman cleaning their houses. I became invisible because being visible almost got me killed. The silence that followed felt heavy with everything she hadn't said. The nights she'd considered ending it all. The slow death of watching her dreams burn. The crushing loneliness of carrying this alone. "Look at me," Dmitri said softly. She did. "You did nothing wrong." His voice was firm, absolute. "You were brilliant and competent, and someone destroyed you for it. That's not your shame to carry. That's theirs. You don't understand? I understand perfectly." He stood, pulling her up with him, his hands framing her face. "I understand that you were thrown to the wolves by people who should have protected you. I understand that you've been punishing yourself for 4 years for crimes you didn't commit. And I understand that you're terrified that I'm going to see you the way they did." His thumbs brushed her cheekbones, wiping away tears she didn't realize had fallen. "But here's what you need to understand, Amara. I've built my life on reading people, on knowing who's genuine and who's performing. And everything about you, your competence, your courage, your inability to watch injustice without speaking up, it all screams integrity." "Your mother doesn't think so," Amara said bitterly, "when she finds out about the scandal." "My mother," Dmitri interrupted, his voice hardening, "has spent her entire life trying to control me, trying to shape me into a replica of my father, brutal, cold, focused only on power and legacy. She hates that I'm trying to legitimize our businesses because it means I'm not the man she wants me to be." He moved closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. "She's going to come after you, Amara. Not because of who you are, but because of what you represent. My choice to be someone different, to value things beyond power and reputation. You're a threat to her control." "Then maybe I should leave," Amara whispered, "before this gets worse." "No." The word was absolute. "You're not running anymore. You're done hiding and surviving in the shadows. I'm going to protect you. And together, we're going to figure out who destroyed your career and why." "Dmitri, you can't." "I can, and I will." His hand slid down to her shoulders, steady and sure. "I have resources, connections, and a very good reason to dig into UN corruption. Give me 2 weeks. Let me investigate what happened to you properly. And in the meantime, you stay here, safe, where my mother can't touch you." Amara wanted to argue, wanted to insist she didn't need saving, didn't deserve his protection. But God, she was so tired of carrying this alone. "Okay," she whispered. 2 weeks. Dmitri smiled, and it transformed his face into something warmer, younger. "Good. Now eat your dinner. Antonio is bringing the full report on your UN scandal, and we're going to start planning." "Planning what?" "Your vindication." His eyes glinted with something dangerous and protective. "No one destroys what's mine and gets away with it." The possessiveness in his voice should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent warmth flooding through her chest. For the first time in 4 years, Amara wasn't alone in this fight. 3 days later, Amara sat in Dimitri's private office, surrounded by documents that Antonio's security team had gathered. UN internal memos, media reports, transcripts from the investigation, everything related to her case. "This is interesting," Dimitri said, highlighting a section of an internal UN memo. "The decision to terminate you was made within 6 hours of the allegation surfacing. That's incredibly fast for an organization that usually takes months to investigate anything." Amara leaned over his shoulder to read. He was right. The memo showed that senior officials had made the decision to fire her before the official investigation had even begun. "Someone wanted you gone immediately," Dmitri continued. "Someone with enough power to bypass normal procedures." But who? And why? Amara had asked herself these questions 1,000 times. That's what we're going to find out. Dmitri pulled up another document. "Look at this. The altered transcripts." The technical metadata shows they were changed from an IP address registered to the UN building, but the specific terminal can't be identified. Someone with high-level access to the system. An inside job, Amara said slowly. An inside job, Dmitri confirmed. Which means this wasn't about you at all. You were just collateral damage in someone else's agenda. The door to the office burst open. Katerina Volkov swept in without knocking, her face flushed with triumph. Dmitri, darling, we need to talk about your new translator. She placed a folder on his desk with a dramatic flourish. I've done some research on Dr. Amara Baptiste. Such an interesting history. Amara's stomach dropped. Here it comes. Mother. Dimitri's voice was cold. I don't recall inviting you to this meeting. Well, I thought you should know what kind of person you've brought into our home. Katerina opened the folder, spreading news articles across the desk. Your brilliant translator was fired from the UN for sabotaging peace negotiations. She's been accused of taking bribes, of working with extremist organizations, of deliberately causing a diplomatic crisis that led to deaths. She looked at Amara with venomous satisfaction. She's not the victim she's pretending to be. She's a disgraced fraud who's been hiding from the consequences of her actions. Are you finished? Dmitri asked calmly. Katerina blinked. Did you hear what I just said? She was framed by someone at the UN, fired without a proper investigation, and has spent 4 years in hiding because the alternative was death threats from people who believed those lies. Dmitri stood, his voice deadly quiet. I know everything, Mother. Amara told me herself 3 days ago. She told you? Katerina's triumph faltered. And you believe her version? A convenient story about being framed. I believe the evidence. Dmitri gestured to the documents surrounding them, which shows that someone with high-level UN access altered those transcripts to destroy her career. Someone with enough power to bypass standard procedures and have her fired immediately. Someone who needed a scapegoat for a failed negotiation. He moved around the desk, placing himself between Katerina and Amara. And I believe Amara because in the 3 days since she's been working for me, she's proven herself to be brilliant, honest, and incapable of watching injustice without speaking up, even when it puts her at risk. Dmitri, you're being manipulated. No, Mother. You're trying to manipulate me. Again. His voice hardened. You brought this information to me thinking it would make me turn against Amara. Instead, all you've done is prove that you care more about control than truth. Katerina's face went pale, then flushed with rage. She's not one of us, Dmitri. She doesn't belong in this family, in this world. That's not your decision to make. Dmitri's voice cut like a blade. This is my home, my business, my choice. Amara stays. And if you try to undermine her again, if you spread these lies or attempt to hurt her in any way, you'll find yourself no longer welcome here. You would choose her over your own mother? Katerina's voice shook with fury and disbelief. I choose honesty over manipulation. I choose competence over social climbing. I choose someone who's survived hell and remained good over someone who's had every advantage and remained cruel. Dmitri's expression was implacable. So yes, Mother. If that's how you want to frame it, I choose her. The silence that followed was deafening. Katerina looked between Dmitri and Amara, her expression cycling through rage, hurt, and finally cold calculation. You'll regret this, she said quietly. Both of you. She swept out of the office, slamming the door behind her. Amara found she was shaking. Dmitri, your mother is a woman who spent my entire life trying to control who I am and who I associate with. He turned to her, his expression softening. I'm done letting her dictate my choices. She's going to retaliate, Amara warned. She's not the type to accept this quietly. I know. Dmitri moved closer, his hand settling on her waist. Which is why I'm doubling your security. You don't go anywhere without two of my men. You don't meet with anyone I haven't vetted. And you stay close to me. I can take care of myself. I know you can. His hands tightened slightly. But you don't have to anymore. Let me protect you, Amara. Let me be the person who stands between you and the people trying to hurt you. Amara looked up at this complicated, dangerous man who'd somehow seen past her invisibility to the person she'd been trying to hide. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Really doing this? It's more than just owing me for the Kozlov meeting? Dmitri was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes searching hers. Because, he said finally, I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. Power, money, connections, legitimacy. Everyone has an angle. Everyone's playing a game. His hand came up, cupping her face with a gentleness that made her breath catch. And then I met a woman who risked everything twice. Once to protect a girl from being hit, and once to save my life in a business meeting. A woman who asked for nothing, expected nothing, and was just trying to survive while staying good in a world that had tried to destroy her. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and Amara's pulse skyrocketed. You remind me that integrity exists, Dmitri continued softly, that someone can be brilliant and kind, strong and gentle, powerful and humble. You make me want to be better than what my father built, better than what my mother expects. Dmitri, I'm falling for you, Amara. The words hung between them, raw and honest. I have been since the moment you stood in my mother's breakfast room and refused to be invisible. And I need you to know that before this gets more complicated, before my world inevitably tries to swallow you whole. Amara's heart hammered against her ribs. This was dangerous, reckless, everything she'd avoided for 4 years. But standing here in his arms, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, feeling protected for the first time since her world had collapsed. I'm falling for you too, she whispered, and it terrifies me. Good. Dmitri smiled, dangerous and warm. We can be terrified together. When he kissed her, it was gentle at first, a question, not a demand. But when Amara responded, her hand sliding up his chest to curl, around his neck, the kiss deepened into something that tasted like promise, and danger, and home, all at once. They broke apart breathless, foreheads pressed together, the world narrowed to just the two of them. We're going to find out who destroyed you, Dmitri murmured against her lips. We're going to expose them, ruin them, and make sure you get the vindication you deserve. And your mother? We'll learn that I'm not my father, that I don't rule through fear and violence. His eyes hardened. But I do protect what's mine, and Amara, you're mine now. Mine to protect, mine to care for, mine to... An explosion shattered the windows. Dimitri's body covered hers instantly, taking them both to the ground as glass rained down around them. Amara felt the impact, heard him grunt in pain, felt his weight pressing her into the floor. Stay down, he commanded, already moving, pulling a gun from a hidden holster as alarms blared throughout the estate. Antonio burst through the door, weapon drawn. Boss, we're under attack. 6 vehicles, at least 20 men. They hit the east wall with explosives. Who? Dmitri demanded, helping Amara to her feet while keeping himself between her and the shattered windows. Unknown. They're professionals. Military-grade equipment. Coordinated assault. Antonio's expression was grim. But boss, they're asking for her. Specifically for Dr. Amara Baptiste. The blood drained from Amara's face. How do they know she's here? Dimitri's voice was deadly quiet. I don't know, but they're not leaving without her. Antonio looked at Amara. They said if we hand her over, they'll withdraw peacefully. If not, they're prepared to level the estate. Not happening, Dmitri said immediately. Get her to the safe room. Full security detail. No one gets near her. Dmitri, wait. Amara grabbed his arm. If they're here for me, maybe I should. No. He turned to her, his face hard with determination and fear. You are not sacrificing yourself. Not for me, not for this estate, not for anyone. But people will die. Then they die protecting what's mine. His hands framed her face, urgent and fierce. I told you I would protect you, Amara. I meant it. Now go with Antonio. Trust me. Another explosion rocked the building. Closer this time. Boss, we need to move now, Antonio urged. Dmitri kissed her hard and fast. I'll come for you. I promise. No matter what happens, I'll come for you. Then Antonio was pulling her away, surrounded by 4 armed men who moved with military precision. They rushed through hallways Amara had cleaned as a maid, past rooms she'd dusted and polished, deeper into the estate toward a part of the house she'd never seen. Behind them, she heard gunfire, shouting, the sounds of a battle being waged for her. Who are they? She asked Antonio as they descended a hidden staircase. Who would attack like this? I don't know, Antonio admitted, his jaw tight. But whoever they are, they have serious resources. This isn't some amateur operation. They reached a reinforced door. Antonio punched in a code and it swung open to reveal a sophisticated safe room. Monitors showing security camera feeds, weapons racks, communications equipment, and enough supplies to last for weeks. You stay here, Antonio commanded. This door won't open from the outside without the code. You'll be safe. What about Dmitri? The boss can handle himself. He's survived worse. But Antonio's expression betrayed his worry. As the door began to close, Amara caught a glimpse of the security monitors. Armed men swarming the estate, Dimitri's security forces engaging them. And in the center of it all, on the main screen, a figure she recognized even after 4 years. Her blood turned to ice. No, she whispered. No, no, no. The door sealed shut with a hydraulic hiss, cutting off her words. On the monitor, she watched Marcus Hawthorne, her former supervisor at the UN, the man who'd led her investigation, the man she'd trusted, directing the assault on the Volkov estate. He'd found her. After 4 years of hiding, he'd finally found her. And now everyone she was starting to care about would pay the price. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Amara paced the safe room, watching the monitors as the battle raged above her. She saw Dmitri moving through the estate like a force of nature, precise, lethal, protecting his people with the same fierce determination he'd promised to protect her with. She saw men fall, saw blood on marble floors she'd once cleaned, saw the estate she'd called home for 6 months being torn apart. And she saw Marcus Hawthorne standing safely behind his mercenaries, directing the assault like a conductor leading an orchestra of violence. The communications panel crackled to life. Dr. Baptiste. Marcus's voice, smooth and cultured, filled the safe room. I know you can hear me. I know you're watching. Amara moved to the panel, her hands shaking. How did he know she was here? 4 years. Marcus continued. 4 years you've been hiding. Did you really think we wouldn't find you eventually? Did you think you could expose what you knew and just disappear? Expose what she knew? I don't know what you're talking about, Amara said into the calm. I didn't expose anything. I was fired, disgraced. Because you were getting too close. Marcus's voice hardened. Those peace negotiations weren't supposed to succeed, Dr. Baptiste. They were supposed to fail spectacularly, ensuring that certain weapons contracts, certain military support agreements, remained in place. Billions of dollars were riding on those talks collapsing. The truth hit Amara like a physical blow. You sabotaged them, she whispered. You altered my transcripts because the talks were succeeding. Because peace would have cost your contractors their profits. Very good. I always knew you were brilliant. Marcus sounded almost proud. And when you started asking questions. When you requested an independent review of the transcripts, we knew you'd become a liability. So we destroyed your career, your reputation, everything. We made you into a cautionary tale about incompetence and corruption. But I didn't tell anyone what I suspected, Amara said desperately. I didn't expose you. Not yet. But you're smart, Amara. You're the kind of person who would eventually put the pieces together, who would eventually come forward. He paused. And now you've attached yourself to Dmitry Volkov, a man trying to legitimize his empire, a man with the resources and connections to help you expose what happened. We couldn't allow that, Marcus continued. So we're here to eliminate the threat, permanently. The monitors showed his mercenaries pushing deeper into the estate. Dimitri's forces were holding, but barely. If you come out voluntarily, I'll call off the assault, Marcus said. Your lover and his people will survive. If you don't, I'll kill everyone in this building until we find you. Your choice. The comm went silent. Amara stared at the monitors, her mind racing. Marcus and his contractors, powerful people with billions to lose if the truth came out, would never stop hunting her. Even if she stayed hidden, even if Dmitri somehow won this battle, they'd come back. They'd keep coming until she was dead, or they were exposed. She thought about Dmitri's promise to protect her, about the way he'd covered her body with his own when the windows exploded, about the fierce determination in his voice when he'd said she was his to protect. But she also thought about Elena, the 19-year-old maid she'd defended, about Antonio and the security team fighting for her right now, about all the people who would die if she stayed hidden. Amara had been invisible for 4 years, had been safe, quiet, small. She was done being invisible. Her fingers flew across the safe room's computer terminal. The system was sophisticated, designed to keep her safe, but it also had access to the estate's entire network, including the security camera system and the backup recording servers. If Marcus thought she'd been passive for 4 years, he was about to learn otherwise. Every instinct for survival that had kept her alive, every bit of intelligence training from her UN days, came roaring back to life. She'd been recording evidence since the moment he started broadcasting. His confession, his contractors' names, the whole conspiracy. It was all being captured by the estate's security system. But she needed more. She needed proof she could release. Proof that would survive even if she didn't. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, accessing systems she'd learned about during her weeks as a maid, the ones she'd cleaned around, observed, filed away in her brilliant, language-trained memory that missed nothing. She created a backup, encrypted it, set it to automatically upload to multiple secure servers with instructions to release everything to major media outlets if she didn't stop the upload within 24 hours. A dead man's switch. Just like they'd taught her in UN security briefings about protecting classified information. Then she did something that would either save everyone or doom them all. She opened the safe room door. Antonio's face went white when he saw her emerging from the safe room. "What the hell are you doing?" he hissed, weapon raised but not pointed at her. "Get back inside." "I need to speak to Dmitri," Amara said calmly, though her heart raced. "Right now." "Absolutely not. The boss gave orders." "The boss doesn't know what I know." Amara met his eyes. "Marcus Hawthorne isn't just here to kill me. He's here to bury evidence of a massive conspiracy, one that I can now prove. But we need to do this my way, or everyone dies." Antonio studied her face, clearly torn between duty and curiosity. Then he cursed and spoke into his comm. "Boss, we have a situation. Baptiste opened the safe room. She's demanding to speak with you." The response was immediate and furious. Dimitri's voice crackled through, speaking rapid Russian that Amara understood perfectly. Most of it involved creative threats about what he'd do to Antonio if anything happened to her. He says he's coming, Antonio translated unnecessarily, and he's extremely not happy with you. I know. Amara's hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. But I'm done being protected while other people die for me. It's time to fight back. Dmitri appeared 30 seconds later, moving through the corridor with 4 armed men flanking him. His suit jacket was gone, his shirt torn and blood-stained. There was a cut above his eyebrow, and his expression was thunderous. "What?" he said with deadly calm. "Are you doing out of the safe room?" "Saving everyone," Amara replied, "including you." "By making yourself a target?" "By giving them what they want." She held up a small USB drive. Marcus Hawthorne just confessed everything over the comm system. The conspiracy to sabotage the peace negotiations, the contractors who paid him, why they framed me. It's all recorded here. And I've set up a dead man's switch. If I don't deactivate it within 24 hours, this evidence goes to every major media outlet in the world. Dmitri stared at her, his gray eyes wide. "You're going to blackmail them." "I'm going to end this." Amara moved closer. "Marcus wants me dead because he thinks I'm a loose end. But if I die, he and his conspirators get exposed anyway. The only way he survives is if I survive. Or he just kills everyone here and destroys the evidence," Dmitri pointed out grimly. "He can't. I uploaded backups to multiple secure servers, including ones outside his reach." Amara's voice was steady with a confidence she didn't quite feel. "He has one choice. Let me go public with the truth on my terms, with immunity and protection, or watch his entire conspiracy crumble." Another explosion rocked the building, closer. The mercenaries were advancing. "We're running out of time," Antonio said urgently. "Boss, we need to decide." Dmitri looked at Amara, and she saw fear warring with pride in his expression. "You're insane," he said. "I learned from the best." She managed a smile. "You told me you protect what's yours. Let me protect what's mine. Let me protect you, your people, this home. Let me stop running and fight back." For a long moment, Dmitri said nothing. Then he pulled her against him, kissing her hard and desperate. "If this goes wrong," he murmured against her lips, "if anything happens to you, then you'll avenge me spectacularly," Amara finished. "But it won't come to that, trust me." "I do." He stepped back, his expression hardening into the dangerous businessman she'd first met. "Antonio, get her a comlink, open channel to Hawthorne, and get our best shooters in position. If this goes sideways, I want him dead before he can blink." 5 minutes later, Amara stood in the estate's main entrance hall, surrounded by shattered glass and bullet holes. Dimitri's men formed a protective circle around her, weapons ready but not visible. "Marcus Hawthorne," she said into the comm, her voice carrying across the open channel. "I want to negotiate." There was a pause. Then Marcus's voice, colored with surprise and suspicion. "Dr. Baptiste. How unexpected. I thought you'd be cowering in whatever hole Volkov hid you in." "I'm done hiding." Amara kept her voice steady, professional, the voice of the UN interpreter she'd once been. "And you're done hunting me. Here's what's going to happen." She outlined everything: the recordings, the dead man's switch, the evidence that would destroy him and his conspirators if anything happened to her. "You have 2 choices," she concluded. "Walk away now, and I'll hold on to this evidence but not release it, as long as I'm left alone and granted formal immunity. Or continue this assault, and whether you kill me or not, the truth comes out and you spend the rest of your life in prison." Another long silence. "You're bluffing," Marcus finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" "You've known me for years, Marcus. You know I don't bluff." Amara's voice hardened. "I'm a woman who speaks 9 languages, who worked at the highest levels of international diplomacy, who survived 4 years of death threats and poverty because you stole my career. Do you really think I wouldn't prepare for this moment? Even if you have evidence, you're one person against a conspiracy with billions of dollars and unlimited resources. I'm one person who's been invisible for 4 years, Amara interrupted. Who's learned how to survive, how to hide, how to make contingencies. I'm one person who now has the full support of Dmitry Volkov's empire, his lawyers, his connections, his protection. And I'm one person who's been victimized too many times to ever let it happen again. She took a breath. So make your choice, Marcus. Walk away and live with the knowledge that I'm out there, holding evidence of your crimes, or attack, and watch your entire world burn. Either way, you don't get to hurt me anymore. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Then, impossibly, the gunfire outside began to cease. Through the broken windows, Amara watched as the mercenaries began to withdraw, falling back toward their vehicles. "This isn't over," Marcus said finally, his voice tight with barely contained rage. "You think you've won, but you're just delaying the inevitable." "No," Amara said quietly. "I've already won. Because for 4 years you've controlled me through fear. You've made me hide, made me small, made me believe I deserved what happened. But I don't. And I'm never going to be your victim again." She ended the transmission. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Dmitri was pulling her into his arms, crushing her against his chest, his body shaking with what might have been relief or residual adrenaline or both. "Don't ever," he said into her hair, "do anything that reckless again without telling me first. I just saved your estate. You nearly gave me a heart attack." He pulled back far enough to see her face. "You're incredible. Terrifying, insane, and incredible." "Is it over?" Amara asked, watching through the windows as the last of the mercenary vehicles disappeared down the drive. "For now," Antonio said, joining them. "But he's right. They'll regroup. They have too much to lose." "Then we go on offense," Dmitri said, his voice hardening. "We take that evidence, we build an airtight case, and we burn them all to the ground. Every contractor, every official, everyone involved in destroying Amara's career and sabotaging those negotiations." He looked at her, his gray eyes fierce and determined. "You wanted to fight back? We fight. Together. I'll give you every resource I have. Lawyers, investigators, political connections, everything. We're going to get you your vindication, Amara. Your name, your reputation, your life back." "Why?" The question came out small, vulnerable. "Why risk so much for me?" Dimitri's hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Because you're mine," he said simply. "Because you walked into my life and reminded me what integrity looks like. Because you've survived hell and remained good, and I'll be damned if I let them break you again." He kissed her, soft and fierce and full of promise. "We're going to win this," he murmured. "And when we do, when your name is cleared and you're free to be Dr. Amara Baptiste again, I'm going to ask you to stay anyway. Not as someone hiding, but as someone choosing to be here. With me." Amara looked up at this dangerous, protective, impossible man and felt something she hadn't felt in 4 years. Hope. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's win." 6 months later, Amara stood in front of a congressional hearing room, her heart steady, her voice clear. "My name is Dr. Amara Elizabeth Baptiste," she said into the microphone. 4 years ago, I was falsely accused of sabotaging UN peace negotiations. Today, I'm here to tell you the truth about what really happened and who was responsible." Behind her sat Dmitri, flanked by a team of the best lawyers money could buy. Beside her on the witness table sat documents, recordings, evidence that had taken 6 months to compile into an unassailable case. For the next 3 hours, Amara testified. She told them everything: the sabotage negotiations, Marcus Hawthorne's confession, the contractors who'd profited from continued conflict. She presented evidence, answered questions, and watched as senators' faces grew increasingly grave. The media coverage was instant and explosive. Within hours, investigations were launched. Marcus Hawthorne was arrested. Defense contractors were subpoenaed. The conspiracy that had destroyed Amara's life began to unravel. And through it all, Dmitri was there, supporting her, protecting her, standing beside her as she reclaimed everything they'd taken. 3 weeks after her congressional testimony, Amara received a formal apology from the UN. Her record was cleared, her reputation restored. Job offers flooded in from organizations around the world. She turned them all down, because when she walked into the Volkov estate that evening, when Dmitri met her at the door with a smile that made her heart skip, when he pulled her into his arms and kissed her like she was the most precious thing in his world, Amara realized something. She'd found her home. "I got another offer today," she told him that night as they sat in his study. Their study now, shared space for shared dreams. "The State Department wants me to head their language services division." "Are you going to take it?" Dmitri asked, though she could see the hope and fear warring in his eyes. "No." Amara set the offer letter aside. "I'm exactly where I want to be." She moved to stand between his knees, her hands settling on his shoulders. "You once told me that I make you want to be better than what your father built. But Dmitri, you made me want to be visible again. You saw me when I'd convinced myself that invisibility was safety. You protected me when I'd forgotten what it felt like to be valued. Amara, I love you," she said, the words coming easily now, naturally. "I love your fierce protectiveness, your determination to be better than your legacy, the way you look at me like I'm both delicate and dangerous. I love this life we're building together." Dmitri stood, pulling her against him, his forehead resting against hers. "I love you too," he murmured. "My brilliant, brave, impossible woman, the one who walked into my life and changed everything." He kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise. "Stay," he whispered. "Not as someone hiding, not as someone who needs protection. Stay as my partner, my equal, the woman I want to build an empire with." "Always," Amara promised. And as Dmitri carried her upstairs to their bedroom, as she lost herself in his touch, and his love and the future they were creating together, Amara thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, invisible, afraid, hiding. And she thought about the woman she was now, seen, loved, free. The maid who'd spoken 9 languages had found her voice again, and she was never going to be silent again. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.